What's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of Whistle Talk, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the stripes and into the world of football officiating. On today's show, we're going to dive deep into the trenches with a true veteran of the line of scrimmage. Our guest tonight is Rod Ammari, a head linesman with over 32 years' experience working the game at the highest level of college football. Rod has seen it all, from the bright lights of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten to the UFL, even the Arena Football League. We're going to pick Rod's brain tonight on everything from pre-snap responsibilities to the keys on running and pass plays, how he manages interactions with the players and coaches in the heat of the battle, and everything in between. So tighten up your laces, football fans, because we're about to go deep into the rule book and behind the scenes of officiating with one of the best that there ever is to work the line of scrimmage. That's coming up next on Whistle Talk.
Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode of Whistle Talk. Today I got the pleasure of having with me a gentleman who's got a number of years' experience in big-time college football, Mr. Rod Ammari. Rod comes to us today with over 32 years experience, a wealth of knowledge, and what Rod and I are going to talk about tonight is officiating the short wing, something that Rod has a pretty good experience with. So, Rod, thank you once again for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Just always happy to talk football.
Always a good topic, no matter what time of year.
Exactly. It's always football season.
It is always football season. And with that being said, Rod just recently over the weekend worked another UFL game. So it is definitely always football season for you, it seems.
Yeah, usually you're always thinking football year round, no matter what. Even in the off season, you're thinking football, and it's just different rule books you're in.
Absolutely. And keeping that nose in the rule books definitely helps out come season time.
Exactly, yeah.
So, Rod, 30-plus years experience, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's been a great advocation. I could tell you the way I got started is I played high school football. I thought I'd go on and let me try to play JC football and realized that at my whopping 5'8" stature, that on-field experience wasn't going to be a good one for me. So my old high school football coach called me when I was in college and said, "Why don't you come help coach high school football?" So while I was in school, I was actually coaching a freshman team and then moved up to a JV team. And I coached for 5 years. And then while I was in college, that's where I started officiating. I started officiating flag football, basketball, war ball, frisbee, golf, anything you could think of, making a whopping $10 a game. And it was just a great way to stay in shape, stay involved. And that's how I started. And, once I actually graduated from college, I just thought I wanted to be a football coach. That was what I wanted to be. Then I realized,
Understandable.
I don't want to say I got a real job, but I got a job that wasn't going to allow me to be at a school at 2:00 every day.
Yes. Yep. See, I was lucky enough. I got into the education world, so I was lucky enough to get that college, that coaching experience, I should say.
Yeah.
Because my schedule was free for that.
And that's the great thing is if you can have a job that can let you do both, it's fantastic.
Yep.
I got a job. I'm a federal agent. So I was actually sent up to Alaska right after I got out of college. And I called a teacher of mine. He was my high school history teacher, best teacher I ever had. He was a Pac-10 official.
Okay.
And I said, "How do I start reffing football? I want to do what you do." And he hooked me up with the local high school association and jumped right in. I got out of college in 91 in May. And come August, September, I was sitting in high school football classes, learning how to ref football, and just took off from there and have just loved every second of it ever since.
That's awesome. So starting at the younger ranks in the high school level, you're now in the Big Ten, correct?
Yes, I'm in the Big Ten. I started when I first started. I was doing freshman games. Come Saturdays, I was reffing 6 games a Saturday. I was reffing Pop Warner football and Junior All-American.
Okay.
And I would just, anytime somebody would say, "You want to ref?" Yes, I do. And I was reffing high school, Thursday high school, Friday high school. When you start Saturday Pop Warner, and just fell in love with it. I couldn't believe how much enjoyment I was getting out of it. And honestly, when I started doing it initially, I didn't realize we got paid. I know we got a little bit,
Yeah.
but oh yeah, here, so fill out this voucher, or some of the private schools that show up and they'd hand you cash. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fantastic. And then you slowly move up the ranks. Now, unfortunately for me, I've been able to work. I'm in the Big Ten this year. It'll be my second year in the Big Ten. I spent 9 years in the Pac-12, 9 amazing years in the Pac-12, and I hate seeing the Pac-12 go away, but spent 9 years in the Pac-12. Before that, I was in the Big Sky for 3 years. Got to see wonderful parts of the country. The Big Sky was one of the best places I ever reffed. Just great schools, great people, parts of the country that I know I would never, ever see without football. So every step
that's the Wyoming area and Boise area. Am I correct with the Big Sky?
Montana's. You get up to the Montanas. You get to go North Dakota, Idaho, places I'd never been.
Yeah.
And then and I'm sure you've heard this before. It's not the football; it's the people and the friends you make along the way.
Yes. Yep.
My best friends are all officials, and to this day, there's people I worked with in the Big Sky that I talk to daily, and I haven't been in the Big Sky since 2013.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I speak with them daily, and it's just a giant kind of brotherhood.
Oop, having a little technical difficulties here. Rod kind of froze up on me. There we go. We got him back.
I'm back. Now, I was saying it's just a giant brotherhood and now sisterhood, because now it's not just for men. It's if you're able to do it, get out there and do it. I had I'll name drop her here, Nicole Randolph, who's in the XFL and is on the NFL ODP list. She was my field judge last year in the Big Ten, and one of the hardest working officials I've ever seen. The improvement from week to week, the dedication to the game, the professionalism, the preparation. She's fantastic. And I think she will be working on Sundays eventually.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I had recently, Kat Conti was one of my guests on. So Kat, I know, is working with the UFL, and she's in the Big 12 conference. So, and just hearing her story, it's for all people that want to be involved and work hard. It doesn't matter gender, race, anything like that. Just come on in if you're interested in learning and staying involved in the game. So
I encourage people. My son, who he's a sophomore in college, has been reffing flag football on Friday nights. And, it may not be something that leads everyone to a collegiate or professional career, but it's a great advocation. It's giving back to the community, giving back to kids that need officials there. And it's just a good thing to be involved with. Unfortunately, at the lower levels, flag football and Pop Warner, typically it's the parents that are that make it kind of a negative experience, because everyone watches Sundays and everyone thinks they know the rules on Sundays. So they're much more willing to yell at us.
Yes, they are. I definitely understand that. Now, I don't know how it is out by you, but here in New Jersey, there's actually a big push going on right now for high school flag football for females. And it's actually something that I know the NFL has been heavily involved in. Is that something that's also going on out in California?
It's huge in California. I'm in Southern California, and the CIF, the California Interscholastic Federation, that is now a high school sport in California. Last year was their first year playing girls flag football. And I want to say 35 to 40 schools in Orange County were playing high school football or high school flag football. And our youth leagues now are doing exclusive girl leagues. So, and my daughter,
that's fantastic.
My daughter played flag football for 3 years, 8, 9, 10 years old. And she was the only girl on the team. But she's like, if my brother can play, why can't I? There's no reason you can't. Yeah. So we signed her up.
Good stuff.
So it's fantastic. I mean, it's just great to get involved in sports, and it's just it's just so rewarding. And the character it builds, the relationships you make, it's really invaluable and part of growing up.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. So, talking about now your officiating career, you're a head linesman now. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I'm a headlines when I believe the official term, at least in the NFL, well, not in the NFL, but the NFL calls it the head down judge now.
Okay.
And in college, it's a down judge, although we're still wearing H's on our back, but it's a down judge.
But you're the head.
I'm the head. I'm the H, the handsome guy.
There you go. I like that. So, for the listeners out there that aren't official aficionados, if I could say that, can you explain what your responsibilities as a line judge are?
Yes, as a line judge, we've got so there are 8 officials on the field, or 7, depending on the level. As a line judge or a head linesman, I'm on the line of scrimmage, so I'm staring at the
Okay.
ball, and that's where I start. And I will gladly tell all the flank officials in the country that is the hardest job in football. Period. You don't get to take a playoff at all.
I couldn't agree with you more. I started off as a short wing myself, and in New Jersey, we actually went to flip flopping sides with the motto that the NFL was using too. So working both the chains on one side and the other side in high school here, we don't have the chains on the other side. So I was more responsible for killing the clock and seeing the first downs and stuff like that. But there is no play off. So, and that
No.
actually kind of leads me into my question for you. Pregame, what's your mindset like pregame with all the different responsibilities that you have to key on and different things like that? So what are you thinking about before the game even starts?
So really, the preparation for a football game starts in the middle of the week. It starts, you start on Tuesday, and you start looking at the prior week's game. You're looking at film, you're looking at tendencies, and then you start to prepare yourself for the pregame with the team, with the crew. So once we get to the game site, we have a pregame meeting. Typically, it's on a Friday night. If we have a late game Saturday, we'll pregame in the morning. But we get together, we pregame, and you review everything that you're going to discuss and what's going to potentially happen in the game. You don't want any surprises. So we'll do a quick rule study. We'll do maybe a 10-question quiz, and then you jump into specific scenarios. This team has a kicker that's a great punter. So you talk about what's going to happen on long kicks, who's going to be looking where, sideline plays. You basically cover all the potential events that might take place in the game in a pregame. On top of logistics and everything else, as silly as that sounds, what time are we leaving for the game? Once you get to the stadium, there's a whole mindset that goes into play because you have so many pregame responsibilities when you get to a game. I tell people, like when I was working JC football, very different for JC football. You'd get to a game an hour and a half, you'd take the field maybe at 60 minutes, and you jump right in. As a line of scrimmage official, you meet with the chain crew first. You talk to the chain crew. You make sure they understand what to expect out of you and also what you expect out of them. You tell them, how are you going to tell them where to set the chains? How you're going to signal the down box guy. That's the one with the first, second, third, fourth down. How you want him to move, when you want him to move. How are you going to react on long plays where they have to run 45 yards? How are they going to react when there's a flag on the field? So they make sure they don't move. So we discuss.
That's probably one of the biggest issues that we tend to have at the high school level, and because a lot of times we're not getting seasoned chain crews, we're getting parents that are volunteering their time, so we're appreciative of it. But it's that long play, and all of a sudden there's a flag on the far sideline that they didn't see, and all of a sudden they're moving the chains down, and we got to go back to the previous spot and whatnot. So that's definitely something that we do pregame talk with. But sometimes the heat of the moment, it could be their kid that had the long run. They're excited and they're looking to get down, and they're like, "Oh, hold up!"
They're cheering. They're cheering for their team.
Yeah, absolutely.
You tell them you're part of the officiating staff. You can't cheer. You have to be neutral when you're here. You just get a good seat. I can tell you the best chain crew I ever had was 4 females at the high school level working a freshman game that had never watched a football game in their lives. They had no idea what was going on with football.
So all they did was listen.
They did exactly what you told them to do.
That's
when
awesome.
I get to a game site and I get a chain crew that, we've done this for years. We know what we're doing. I get worried.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to be too complacent because you're so comfortable with doing this that you I'm sure you know what you're doing, but you think you know more than you do possibly. And you're going to start assuming things. You're going to watch the game and assume things. And that's when we get in trouble. So
now in the Big 12 conference, in the Big 10 conference, I'm sorry, who is your chain crew? Is it somebody assigned by the school? Is it somebody assigned by the NCAA itself? Or how does that work for the chain crew at the college level?
they're employed by the schools.
Okay.
So typically, when you go to a game site, we're going to Nebraska or Ohio State. We know the chain crews. They've been there for a long time. And no matter how long they've been there, we do make sure we go through everything with them. But at that point, you tend to learn tendencies, and I'm just going to throw out generic schools. But, the guy at Illinois, the box moves too fast. You're going to talk to him to go slower. The auxiliary guy, at Washington forgets to move once in a while. So you get to know who they are. But the nice thing there is they also get to learn who you are, and they learn how you work. And I know I'm jumping into the weeds, but, and NCAA, we put our hands straight up for a dead ball signal. We've got a 6-yard gain with a dead ball signal. Well, I don't want my box to move yet. So he has to know that I give him a secondary signal at my shoulders. Yep. And you see a second down signal, and I always learn the box man's name. Hey, Frank, second down. Hey, Frank, third down. I'm never going to turn around. And in some of these stadiums, they're never going to hear me. But they're going to see the visuals of my signals and my mechanics. So it's consistent all game, so they know.
And just the verbalization of it is helping you remember what down it is too, because God forbid you forget what down it is, and now all of a sudden you're killing the clock for a first down when it's not a first down. So all those different things are mental keys for us as officials too, along with the communication aspect with the box behind you.
Yes. Oh, exactly. That's exactly it. And I can tell you, the game, typically at the end of a game, I am more mentally exhausted than physically exhausted. Because as a line of scrimmage official, you're constantly thinking of what's going to happen next. You just can't take a play off. I've got third down and 5.5. Okay, if there's a 5-yard penalty, it's not a first down. I got to make sure the referee knows if it's a 5-yard penalty, it's not a first down. And I communicate with that to him before the play.
Yep.
You'll hear us saying long 5, short 5. 5 will get you 1, 5 won't. So if something were to happen and the defense jumps off sides and makes contact, the referee immediately knows we're not going to have a first down, or we are. And what you learn is that a lot of wasted time takes place on penalty enforcement, where if we're just talking too much, you're wasting 45 seconds 20 times a game. You've added 18 minutes to a football game. But if you're efficient,
oh boy,
you can move that stuff quickly. I worked with Steve Strimling, if you've heard the name, was my referee in the Pac-12 for 2 years. Steve was so efficient in penalty enforcements that a lot of times we would throw a flag for a false start, and by the time the flag hit the ground and you told him the number on our radio, he was already turned and announcing the foul within 4 to 5 seconds of the flag being thrown.
Wow.
That's a good thing. That could be a bad thing, but very efficient.
You want to make sure you get it right.
Yeah. So, it really, the chain crew is so important to the game that we've got to really make sure they know what they're doing, and we have to have trust in them that they're comfortable with what they're doing. And that's the things. We'll do a field. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And for my opinion, any new official out there, if you get an opportunity and you're asked to do the chains, do as many chain games as you can. And I particularly, even today, if I work a chain game, which isn't too often, but I'll throw it out to my signer. Hey, you need somebody? I'm off that night. I love working the box. I love holding the down box because now I'm interacting with that official there. And when I was new, most of them are there to help. I'm like, hey, what did you see on that one? Why did you have that? Or any type of dead ball or something like that, maybe a timeout. It was an opportunity for me to learn the game better because I was coming from a coaching standpoint. So the hand signals, the mechanics, the different things like that, the 5 will get you 1. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So all those little things definitely helped me out just by holding the box. So I think it helped me transition onto the field a lot easier by just being there. So definitely something that I recommend to any new official. Get on that box as much as you can.
Oh, definitely. And I'm a talker. I interact with the crew all game. Every play I'm yelling. By the end of the game, I've lost my voice, but I'm yelling, okay, we're at the 33-yard line. We're going to the 43-yard line. I've got first down and 10. And I'll look at the guy on the chains. Are you standing on the 42? Okay, we're going to the 42. A lot of times coaches are looking at me like, who are you talking to? I'm just talking to myself. Because if something were to happen and we have a long play that's going to get reversed, I may remember I was at the 42-yard line. I'm going to go back to the 42. So it's just a visual, an audio thing for me that I talk to myself all game long. And I find when I do that, I actually engage the crew. The chain crew stays engaged, and now they're starting to talk to me back. And they don't check out, especially if you have a one-sided game.
That is dangerous.
Tend to float away, but I just engage them by talking to them constantly. During TV timeouts, asking where they're from, what's a good place to go to eat after the game. Typically, also at these all the Big Ten schools, they're all officials. So, they're working and they want to move up. So they know what we do. And they'll ask McCann, why did you do this on that play? And what were you looking at that play? So it's great to interact. And I can tell you that even I'm going into my 33rd year, I learn something every game. You see something weird and different every single game. So I just love the interaction. And it's just the second you think you know everything, it's time to quit because you're going to start doing bad things. You're always learning no matter what.
No matter what. No, I agree. And going back to you talking to yourself, I actually do the same thing in the middle of the game. Now I'm an umpire. I transitioned from the sideline. Now I'm in the middle of the field as an umpire. But one of the things that I always verbalize is punts. When they're lined up in a punt formation, the number rule gets thrown out the window. So any type of kick situation. So I'm verbalizing all the ineligible numbers that I see.
Yep.
Okay. So as I was saying, I verbalize all the ineligible numbers that I see so that if we have an illegal man downfield on a broken play, all of a sudden, because a couple of years back, we had a big play in our area where the punt was bobbled and he ended up throwing it to number 42, but number 42 happened to be the guard on that play. So it should have came back and it ended up 42, took it all the way down for a touchdown, and it was a game-winning touchdown. So it was a bad optic. It was a missed call by our guys, and it's something that I learned. Okay, how can I prevent that from happening again now? So like you're talking about, verbalizing it, saying out loud, not only triggers it to me, but now all of a sudden if I see it, wait a minute, I just said 42. Okay, that now we're dropping a flag on that one. No, I apologize. We're having some internet technical difficulties here, so. There we go. We got Rod back.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
I'll jump on that. What you were saying, and I'll mention a game. Back in 2013, I was fortunate enough to work the FCS National Championship between Sam Houston and North Dakota State. And part of my pregame routine and my pre-snap routine is knowing my eligibles on field goal plays.
Yep.
So on a particular play, North Dakota State's setting up for a field goal. It's about the 30-yard line. And I look, okay, I've got 80 as my tackle, or my tight end is 80, and 21's my wing. And suddenly there's a bad snap, and it's just a mad scramble. People going in every direction, and okay, I'm hold the line of scrimmage, and now here goes a pass into the end zone, and number 80 catches a pass, and now everyone starts thinking, where did he come from?
Yep.
I was like, whoop! And I came flying in. I saw the discussion taking place, knew what was happening, and I said, no. That's a touchdown. 80 was my tight end. He was in a legal position. It's a good score. And that's where we were talking about with eligibles and ineligible positions and the other way around. You've got to know who's eligible to catch a pass on those plays.
Yep, because a lot of times in high school, we'll see an extra lineman get brought out there to be the tight end on the extra points. And in high school, they're still ineligible by number. There's no declaring yourself in the high school level, so can't declare yourself. So now you mentioned before, and I'm in total agreement with you, that short wing position is the hardest place to officiate. Why do you say that? What makes you say that?
we have the responsibility for essentially everything in the game. So I'll walk you through a typical play. So ball's put down, the ball's on the 20-yard line. My pre-snap routine starts. I'm counting 11 on the offense. I've got to know they don't have more than 11. As the team comes up to the line, I've got to make sure the formation is legal. Do we only have 7 on the line? Do we have 6 on the line? If we have 6 on the line, that's okay, because the foul then becomes, do we have 10 on the field? So I've got to make sure we only have 4 backs. So I got to make sure the formation is legal then. Then I got to make sure that the defense is not across the ball. So I got to think about, okay, I've got to watch the defense, make sure they're not offside. I've got to watch and make sure the offense doesn't start early. So no false starts. The center guard tackle on my side can't start early. I've got to make sure that receiver doesn't flinch. Now the receiver goes in motion. I got to make sure he's not moving forward towards the line of scrimmage. So no illegal motion there. Now at the snap, so this is all before the snap even happens. I got to make sure all the stuff's happening before the snap even happens. So now the ball is snapped. Quarterback gets the ball. I've got to read the play. I first read my tackle. Is my tackle shooting out? Is it a running play? Is a tackle going back? Is it potentially a pass play? And then you read the play for a count or two. And then if it's a running play, you go to your keys. What's the point of attack? I got to make sure I'm watching the point of attack and watching my responsibility. Is my tackle blocking legally? Is he holding? Is he not holding? If the play's coming wide towards me, I now have to watch that edge block. I've got to watch the lead block, and then you transition to the receiver. Once the running back gets all the way out to the receiver and he's turning the corner, is that receiver holding or is he not holding? During all this, I got to make sure outside the tackle box, no one's blocking low.
Mm-hmm.
So now in college, after the initial charge, no one can block below, offense or defense. So I got to make sure that nobody's blocking low.
That's including the defense too, because that's actually a big thing that we're dealing with is defensive ends undercutting the guards on traps and stuff like that, of cutting them and they're outside the box.
Yep, that's exactly it. So you got to make sure that the defense isn't going low after the initial charge. I've got to make sure there's no combo chop blocks on my edge. Guy's getting tackled, so as he's getting tackled, is he being horse collared? Is there a face mask? As he's going down, is he in bounds or out of bounds? Do I have a first down? Now in college, we don't stop the clock until under 2 minutes. But is he in bounds? Is he out of bounds? Where are we on the line to gain? Are we near the line to gain? Do I have to think about line to gain? And then as the play ends, you start dead ball officiating immediately. I'm dead ball officiating now. I'm watching the players separate. At the same time, I've got to give a spot. I've got to communicate to my umpire, where's the spot? Where am I putting the ball? And then as the ball goes in and the players separate. And you also got to deal with
the forward progress and the momentum and all that other fun stuff too. And one area that you didn't mention, you got a toss sweep coming your way, and you've got 2 300-pound guards that are pulling outside, out wide. Where are you going at that point in time as everything's coming right at you, and you got all these very, very large athletic individuals coming right at you?
I try to move backwards first. I'll try to move back as far back as I can, and I coach my chain crew. If I'm backing up, please get out of the way, but don't just drop the sticks. Take them with you. Pull them all the way back with you. If you have to drop them backwards, not sideways. If you drop them backwards, it's just a little thin thing I might step on. If you drop them long ways, that's much more area that I'm going to trip over. And then you get to the point where if you're not deep enough, you've got to retreat into the offensive backfield. You want to kind of live to see another play. I've been hit quite a few times. And the more, I'll use the word instead of old, the more experienced I am, I realize I don't like being hit because I'm less likely to get up after these hits. So a lot of it really is the feel for the game and experience and knowing when to move and where to move.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Big thing, and you mentioned it before, is you want to hustle, but you don't want to rush. So you want to make sure that you're seeing everything, you're still triangulating your vision, and that you're working with your deep official too, so that everybody's it's a fun little dance that we have going on in the football game that a lot of people don't truly understand of where we're positioning and turning our bodies. And again, you're dealing with the sidelines, you're dealing with catch, incomplete, foot out of bounds, foot inbounds, all those different things too, on top of, like I said, all these big bodies flying your way.
Oh, you hear the term move with a purpose.
So
Why am I moving? Am I just
If
moving
you
to
had to
move?
pick one particular
You've
type
got
of
to
play, what
realize
would you
that.
say is going to be the hardest play for you to officiate?
Can you repeat that? I
Oh,
think
I'm
you
sorry. Go
froze
ahead.
for a second. No, I was saying you've got to learn
Yeah.
to move with a purpose, not just to move. And I think part of your question is
Yep.
what's the hardest play for us to officiate as line of scrimmage officials?
Correct.
The hardest thing by far for me to deal with is a scrambling quarterback. It's a pass play. I've got my receiver. My receiver's 8, 9 yards downfield. I've got to keep my eye on my receiver. And the quarterback is sprinting right towards me on the line of scrimmage. So I can't leave the line of scrimmage because I've got to be responsible for, is the pass legally thrown from behind the line? So if I leave the line of scrimmage, I don't have any opinion on where the guy's releasing the pass from. But I've got to get off. I've got to back up enough so I don't get run over. And then I'm also responsible for the quarterback stepping out of bounds.
Yep.
So the quarterback's scrambling and he's 6, 7 yards in the offensive backfield, and I'm standing at the 20 and he's at the 13-yard line. I got to look back, make sure he's not stepping out of bounds. And now he throws a pass 15 yards downfield. I've got to that quickly decide if he stepped out of bounds or not and transition to my pass right away and my receiver. And immediately go into potential early contact, defensive holding, pass interference. Is the pass caught? Is the receiver, was he out of bounds? Did he step out of bounds and I didn't see it? So that's the hardest thing is that dual responsibility when the quarterback's running at you. You've got to hold the line of scrimmage. You've got to rule on the quarterback potentially being tackled or going down or throwing a last-second pass near the sideline, down the sideline. That's by far the hardest thing. And I'll have young officials ask, how do you do that? It's just seeing snaps over and over again and knowing what you're going to give up, essentially. I'm going to give up watching that receiver downfield for a second because the quarterback stepping out of bounds is more important at the time.
Correct. And hopefully your deep wing can help you out in that aspect with the receiver downfield. And for you guys, you got another guy playing center field too. So you may get that extra set of eyes on there where that 7-yard loss and basically the down being dead right then and there is much more important than what goes on downfield at that point in time. So it's a half second, but it's an important half second. So I definitely agree with you. And for what you're saying, for again, the people that don't truly understand it, your focus is literally lateral up and down the sidelines on the same play of people running a 4-2 and throwing the ball 70 yards or different things like that. So the athleticism on top of what your keys are and the mental responsibility, it definitely could be daunting at times.
Oh, that's the thing is every year I can say I have one more year experience. These world-class athletes are always between 19 and 23 every year. They don't get older. They just get fast. So you learn, your experience starts to teach you where to look, what to look for, and you really start to be able to predict the play before it even happens. And it's funny, a little, party game my wife likes to play is we'll go and we'll watch a football game with friends. And a flag is thrown. I'm like, oh, that's holding. How did you know? Oh, well, I happen to know what that official's looking at.
Yep.
Or, a late flag comes out. So it becomes a running joke with are these games, predetermined? No, you just, if a center judge is throwing something, I know what they're looking for. When an umpire throws a flag, I know their responsibilities. And that's the thing sometimes for coaches, where I'll be at the line of scrimmage and there'll be a hold 3 yards to my left I don't see. How is it possible you didn't see that? Well, coach, I'm watching the second receiver who's 8 yards downfield across the middle. I'm not looking at that wide out along the sideline. And coaches will test you.
Yeah.
I had a coach years ago at Oregon. On a punt play, something happened about 10 yards downfield to my left. I saw something out of my peripheral vision. Couldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah.
After the play, the coach goes, "Did you not see that?" No, coach, I didn't. Something happened. He goes, "Well, nothing happened. I just wanted to see." He was testing me.
There you go.
No, it was nothing. Well, no, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. And, they will test you for what you see and you don't see.
And I like that you brought that up because one thing that I was taught too is make sure you do see what you see because of the fact that the coaches are going to test you. And just because if you see something in your peripheral, if you don't see it clearly, it might not be a foul. It might sound like a foul, and the
Yeah.
crowd might not like it. But if you're not seeing it clearly, you're better off sticking that flag down deep in your pocket and saying, "No, coach, I didn't see that." And then, as
Yep.
opposed to, "Coach, I thought he hit him in the back." That one usually doesn't fly too well. As opposed to, "No, coach, his shoulders were turned and he saw the nameplate. It was definitely a block in the back." Then you're okay. But
Anytime you think you saw a foul, you didn't. You
yeah,
have to know that you saw a foul. And again, it's with more and more experience, you learn that you want to always throw flags that are correct, that are there, and you can make a career on missed call, on no calls. I didn't call it because I didn't see it clearly. Supervisors understand no calls, but if I'm throwing
yes,
flags that aren't there, and I'm using our technical jargon, an IC, an incorrect call, that's the official's worst nightmare, is an incorrect call, because it
yep.
means you threw something that just didn't take place. So
So a funny story. I was working. This was a freshman game, so it was only a 3-man crew, and I was working as the head referee. So and a 3-man crew as opposed to a 6-man crew and 7-man crew. All the mechanics are always a little bit different, and
mhm,
now you got 3 sets of eyes instead of 6 eyes. Well, one of my mates, he threw a flag. I'm like, all right, well, what'd you have on that? And he's like, it just didn't sound right, Mike. I'm like, all right, well, what did you have? He's like, I think it was a clip. I'm like, did you think it was a clip or was it a clip? He's like, it just didn't sound right. I'm like, listen, we can't penalize that.
yeah,
And we ended up waving it off. And I went over to both coaches and I explained to them what happened, and they were okay with it. And I kind of sugarcoated it a little bit, but halftime of that game, we talked. I'm like, hey, listen, we can't be throwing those flags. We're better off saying, coach, I didn't see it. Let's find the safety fouls and those types of things, as opposed to throwing it and say, I think that was that.
yeah.
So those are the ones that'll definitely come back to bite you.
And it's also interesting because some of on my crew in the Big Ten last year, we went from the discussion of we want to make sure we're seeing the fouls to the degree of fouls. We called them, November calls.
Okay.
I don't want it just to be a foul. I want it to have such a huge effect on the play that we have to call this. So, if there's a hold on the backside of a play, is it a hold? Well, yeah. Do I need to call it?
Did it
Probably
affect the
not.
play?
Did it affect the play? It becomes, and that's where you kind of know you've made it and you understand the game, is that I see the foul. What effect did the foul have on the play? And what level of contact is there? I mean, when we're watching, for example, DPI and OPI, some of the hardest things to call. Is there slight early contact? There might be. Did it materially affect the receiver's ability to make a catch? It might not have.
Yeah.
Same thing. Slight shirt tugs across the middle. And you'll hear the term, did it take a step away? The
So
coach will
now,
see a shirt tug.
oh,
Well,
kind of
coach,
froze
yeah,
up
his
again.
shirt was tugged, but he didn't take a step away. He ran right through it. So you
Yep.
learn the level of things you want to call. I can tell
So
you
now, for
every game
me,
there's 8, 9
being an
things that could
umpire,
have called
I'm in the middle of
that
the
won't
field
show
a
up on
lot.
film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we kind of glitched out a second there.
Yeah.
So one thing that I like to do, and I know a lot of officials, we always talk about it, is just the preventative officiating, talking to the players. Now, when you get a scenario where, say, it was a backside hold that didn't affect the player, are you
I mean,
verbally speaking with the players at the collegiate level?
you froze up for a second. So I think, can you repeat that real quick? Something about talking to players?
Yeah, so the preventative officiating. So if you have a hold on the backside and you happen to be the backside official, are you going up and say, hey, 82, if that's point of the attack, or you're going to get banged for holding, work the hands inside, different things like that. And in the
Definitely.
middle of the field, as an umpire, I have the luxury of doing that, especially talking to, say, a backside tackle. Hey, keep the hands inside. If it's point of the attack, I'm going to hit you on it. But do you guys still do that at the collegiate level too?
We're constantly talking to players, constantly.
Okay.
About holding potentially, picks that are set, lineup, formations, tackles getting deep, defensive ends having their hands close to the neutral zone. We're constantly preventative officiating, constantly. And the best part of that is that it's a teaching moment, but it's also positive interaction. We're interacting with the players in a positive way. They think you've let them get away with something.
Yes.
So you're basically telling them, hey, this was a foul I could have called. But the most important thing there is anytime you communicate with the player, you go tell the coach.
Absolutely.
I make sure every time I warn a tackle, hey, 79, left tackle, I need you up on the ball. I go tell the not just the position coach, the head coach. Coach, I've warned 79 to be up on the ball. Or coach, your defensive end, he's lining up over the ball. I need him to back up a little bit. And it's positive interactions with the coaches, and they truly, really, really appreciate that interaction. I mean, I'll give you one from this past weekend where there was a play where there was an offensive lineman had grabbed a face mask of a defender and pulled him to the ground. The defender got up, he was upset, and he had put his hand out and he was holding the offensive lineman's jersey. And the offensive lineman took a couple of, I don't want to call them punches, but a couple of swings trying to clear the guy's arm off his shoulder. He was simply trying to knock the guy's arm off. Well, the head coach behind me says, Rod, he just punched him twice and you saw it. So after the punt, we're in TV timeout. I went to the coach. The coach, he had your player had him by the jersey and he was simply trying to knock the guy's hand off. It wasn't a punch. He was trying to clear it. Was it okay? No, but your guy started it. Now, had he punched him in the head, I was looking at it and I would have thrown him out of the game for that. But we saw the same thing.
Absolutely.
And I would have called it the same way the other way. And that was it. The coach said, thank you. I understand exactly why you didn't throw a flag. And I thank you for the explanation. And that was it. And without that interaction with the coach, that play may go in. Hey, look, your officials missed a punch. But here it's like, no, here's what happened. And that's, here's why we didn't call it. And again, a lot of it's communication with coaches. You've got to have, if you can't communicate, you can't be on the sidelines.
And that kind of goes into the next thing that I was going to talk about is the communication aspect with the coaches from being the short wing. I know a lot of times with the O to O, I'm calling them my short wings because the coaches tend to be right next to you as opposed to next to the deep wings. They're right at the line of scrimmage, right in your ear a lot. So for me as an umpire, it's very easy for me to, I'll go just like you're talking about. Hey, 79, let's work our hands inside. Interior lineman, wing might not see it. It's my key. I'm talking to him, but I'm going to communicate that over to the sideline and say, hey, Joey, let the coach know I've already talked to 79 about working his hands inside. And they appreciate that. And then they coach him up. And then later on, if you do have to throw it, now the coaches are not yelling at you anymore. He told you to keep your hands inside. We talked about it. So it gets them on your side when you do have to call the foul, which, again, we don't really want to. But when you do have to call it, it gets them to know that, okay, you've given them a warning, you've talked them to it, you've given both sides the warning. Play football.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I enjoy the most about my position is the interaction with the coaches. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're interacting constantly, and it's most of the time it's positive, but they're there. The difference between what we do as officials and coaches, what we do is it's not easy, and we work hard at it. The difference is if I get fired from officiating for some reason, I go home and I go to my job and I've got my house. When a head coach gets fired from officiating, their house gets put up for sale, their family's moving. Yep. So it's a different level. And when we have to, as officials, understand that when we shake a coach's hand in pregame and we introduce ourselves, it's uncomfortable for the coaches because they're essentially turning over all the control of their entire program over to us. Coaches control playing time. They control who's on the field. They control their rosters. But they don't control what we do on the field. They turn that over to us, and we're kind of the caretakers of the game, as cheesy as that sounds. But they know that they don't have control of what we do. And they have to trust that we're there to honestly do this. I mean, nobody wakes up and thinks, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to make sure I screw team XYZ. Or I'm going to go blow a call because I feel like it. I mean, that's not what we do. So, this is hard work. And if I'm telling too many war stories, let me know. But I was working a junior college game, 20 years ago. And I made a call at a goal line on a touchdown play. Quarterback sneak from the 1 yard line. And Quarterback sneaks in, hands up in the air, touchdown, woohoo. Problem is I never saw the ball. It was away from me. As I'm going up and I'm blowing my whistle, a defensive back has knocked the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and a different player has scooped the ball up 5 yards deep in the end zone and gone 105 yards the other way. So
Rod, I'm going to have to tell you to go back and watch one of my previous episodes where I interviewed Bill Sertival. We had a scenario that Bill was a head referee here in New Jersey, state championship game, triple overtime, exact same scenario.
Yeah.
But they didn't put their hands up. They didn't see the ball. So they kept their mouths shut. And all of a sudden, there's a defensive player running down the sideline, scores the game-winning touchdown because a defensive touchdown in overtime ends the game.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very controversial play. And it went to replay. And unfortunately, and you being a short wing, the masses of humanity, things get lost in there.
That's a good thing.
And this was actually at Rutgers, so it was the collegiate replay system. It wasn't enough to overturn the call. So one team thinks they got screwed, another team thinks they won the game, and somebody went home really unhappy from a scenario like that. And it happens.
Well, it's interesting here. This is back in the videotape days. So I had called a coach on Monday. I said, "Coach, I'd like to bring a videotape and get a copy of your game." So sure. So I show up to the school. Met the head coach. He goes, "You want to see that goal line play, don't you?" He knew exactly what I was showing up to see. He goes, "Yeah, I want to see the goal line play." And the coach laughed, said, "Don't worry, we scored." And it was a weight off my shoulders because it ended up being a one-score game. And the team that I'd given the touchdown had won. Well, they had scored. Well, I can tell you from Saturday afternoon to Monday, Sunday I spent on the couch. I was physically ill. I couldn't eat. Because we take this so seriously, I thought I had affected a game. I thought the wrong team had won.
Yeah.
And that's what sometimes people don't understand is we don't just go home and let's go drink beer and eat pizza. We take this stuff seriously. And I physically had and I've only experienced it once, but I thought I was going to get ill, sick. I couldn't sleep. And not until I was able to see that I got it right did I relax. And that's the difference between 30 years ago and now. 30 years ago, you went and reffed a high school game. You threw 19 flags. They could all be there. They could not be there. But there was no accountability. No. These days, everything is on film. From your Pop Warner game, from the 8-year-olds playing, to the high school championships, to anything. Everything is on film. Everything is accountability. And I think it's really made our jobs a little harder. Because
these
now
things here.
Everything. We talked about pregame. What do I do when I show up on pregame at the on the field? And when I teach at clinics, I tell officials, when you walk on the field, you are on stage.
Yes.
There are cameras everywhere. So if during pregame you stand at the 50-yard line and talk to your buddy for 45 minutes, people see that. But if you're preparing yourself, you're watching pass patterns, you're watching linemen, you're watching punts being caught and returned as a back judge. You're working and people can see you're working and you're constantly on stage. And I've said things as a younger official that probably would get me fired today. So I'm thankful that we didn't have phones back in the early 90s that were recording everything. But you're always on film and you're always accountable for everything. And no matter what it is, you're going to be accountable. And I don't know if you want like my war stories. I worked an arena game. I was working an arena semifinal game in Stockton back, I think, in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Controversial ending. The end of the game was it a touchdown? Was it a fumble? And that was the game-winning score. So we finished the game, showered. We drove about 2 hours away, went back to a city by an airport. I'll leave the cities out of it, but
okay.
We have dinner. So we start talking, and these people start engaging us. Hey, are you the refs? And some of the officials were younger, so they start talking to these guys. These were fans of the losing team.
Oh, boy.
They were trying to get the officials to say things, and at the time, they were posting on Twitter, "We're having beers with the refs, and here's what they're saying."
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got to really be careful with what you say and what you do. And I mean, to the point where your social media presence and your profiles are going to be looked at and scrubbed. I mean, I don't wear team gear, period.
Okay.
If I work a bowl game and I buy a t-shirt, it's got to have both teams on it. If I'm going to wear a conference sweatshirt, it's going to be just Big Ten conference.
Yep.
Because otherwise, there are beliefs that we're out there being biased. So you've got to really be careful on what you do. I know for us, we don't go to casinos.
I've had to personally, because of where I teach, I've had to recuse myself from working particular games because I either know the coaches or I know I can't work the school that I teach in. I'm not allowed to work those games, and I'm completely fine with that because I don't want the pressure on myself, let alone the kids and then the other coaches. So yeah, you definitely everything, and even at the high school level, we are on stage. We walk out onto the field, and people are looking at you.
Yeah, we have the same thing in the Big Ten. We have a conflict policy. If you graduated from a school, you can't work their games. If your spouse graduated from a school, you can't work those games. If your kids are going to a specific school, you can't work those games, and it's really for your protection.
Yeah. So, Rod, I've actually kept you on here a little bit longer than I thought I was going to, but I want to, if you could, give our listeners. You mentioned it just before that you do clinics and you've been a trainer and you've helped out at various different camps and clinics. What kind of advice do you have for younger aspiring officials that you think could possibly help them achieve their goals in football, officiating football, I should say?
It's interesting. It's kind of a twofold answer. So you want to learn and be as good as you can be at the level you're working. Be really satisfied at the level you're working.
Yep.
And then you've got to decide, why are you going to camp? If I'm going to go to a camp or a clinic, am I going to learn or am I going to get hired? Because there's a difference.
Yes.
If you're going to learn, you've got to pick the clinics that you're going to go to learn. Like, here's a clinic that's going to teach football where I don't have to have a lot of pressure on me. And they're teaching clinics, if that makes sense. I mean, they're all teaching clinics, but certain ones, as you get to the upper echelon of the clinics where all the bosses are going to, the NFL's there, people are going there to get hired. So if you're going to a clinic like that and you want to get hired, you've got to make sure you're ready to be seen there, because it's going to cost you a lot of money to go. If you're paying $1,500 to $2,000 to go to the clinic, make sure you're ready to go at that level. And then be physically fit. Make sure you're in shape. What's the first thing any boss looks at is, how do you look in uniform? This is truly a beauty pageant when you go to a clinic. Make sure you're in shape. And then what are we looking at these clinics? We're looking at mechanics. Not so much judgment, it's mechanics. Because typically at clinics, you're working, junior high school football. It's JV football, so the quality of the football may not be there to really have lots of things happen in front of you. But it's know your mechanics when you show up to work at the clinic. And then when you go to the clinic, make sure you're making connections with the trainers so you can have somebody that can mentor you in the future. But make sure you're getting something out of that clinic where, again, be in shape when you get there, know your mechanics, know how to move well, have legitimate questions on things. And then, find somebody that you connect with and use them throughout that next couple seasons as somebody to throw things off of. And please, when you go to a clinic and you're getting feedback, don't be the yeah, but guy. When somebody gives you feedback, hey, did you see that hold right there? Yeah, but I didn't call it because. Don't be the yeah, but guy. Listen to the feedback you're getting.
Yep.
You may not agree with the feedback. The feedback I give you is going to be different maybe from the guy from the SEC or what the NFL guy's telling you, or what you learn is there's always something you can learn from somebody. And if it doesn't work for you, don't use the feedback, but thank them for it. Be open to the feedback and don't be the yeah, but guy, because the yeah, but guy spends a lot of money to end their potential to move up. And I've seen people go to these clinics and start pushing back on the feedback they're getting. And then it becomes, you spent a whole lot of money to make sure everyone knows you're not coachable. So be ready. And again, be willing to listen to the feedback. And again, I've gotten feedback from people that are in very high levels that I was like, I don't agree with that, but you thank them for it and just don't use the feedback. Move on, just flush that. But I've learned things everywhere I've gone where, it's become very, very beneficial. I mean, I learned I started going to the goal line on goal line mechanics differently last year after 31 years, after talking to an official that was in the NFL on how they did things. And I was like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. Let me try it. I tried it in a game. I'm like, oh, I actually like this. So after doing it 31 years, I've changed my mechanics.
I got to ask you to spill the beans on that one. What is it that you're doing different?
So typically at the goal line, we're at the 7-yard line and in. I know how many side shuffles it would be to get to the goal line. I know how fast I can get there. But the hardest thing when you're doing that is making sure you're still watching your keys, right? Am I watching my tackle? Am I watching my receiver, my back? And this official said, do you ever consider just turning slightly and backpedaling to the goal line? Wow, backpedaling to the goal line from the 6-yard line? No, I've never thought of that. So in a game, I tried it. I turned and backpedaled, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my shoulders are square. That's what I'm looking at. I know how many steps it is to get to the goal line. And I started backpedaling to the goal line from the line of scrimmage. It's not a full, I'm not turning 90 degrees and backpedaling, but it became more of a backpedal instead of a side shuffle. And I was able to watch my key a little better. So something bizarre. Some others have tried it. It didn't work for them. And I liked it. So I've incorporated it ever since.
There you go. That's good stuff. And learning new tricks. I like that. That's definitely something for the listeners. Take a try with a scrimmage time and see if you like it or not. Because your mechanic technically isn't changing. It's just how you're executing the mechanic. You're just doing it a little bit differently, but you're still keeping your keys and your laser focus, and those things are all staying the same. It's just how you're doing it, and found that one to be more comfortable. That's awesome.
Yeah. Is it 3 side shuffles or is it just 5 steps backwards? You're still getting there.
As long as you can keep that head from bouncing all over the place, that's going to be the key. You don't want those bouncy eyes.
That's exactly it. And that was a big change in the last couple of years is we talk about move with the purpose. On a 40-yard pass play, 10 years ago, I would turn and I'd start sprinting. Not anymore. Now I turn, the pass is 40 yards downfield. I'll run maybe 5 or 6 yards. And as the ball now is coming down from its apex, I settle in and I stand still and I watch the ball come in. And I can officiate that play not moving. Now, if the ball's caught, it's a young man's thing with the ego. I got the spot. No, well, you know what? My side judge can get that spot if they're tackled right in front of him.
Yep.
I don't have to sprint 35, 40 yards, but I can stand still and officiate the play not moving because, as your head, as long as your eyes aren't bouncing, you actually see the play much more clearly. And that's not an easy thing to do if you're used to turning and running constantly.
Yeah, and a tip that I learned when I first started, it's just something that always stuck with me is sniper eyes. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by sniper eyes? They're like, well, if you ever watched a World War II movie and you see the sniper up in the bell tower, their eyes are laser focused. They are just focused on what they're not moving, they're not going, they're even timing their breathing with it. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So seeing it first and then getting there, you're going to get the call 9 times out of 10 correct.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're mechanically doing what you're supposed to be doing constantly, I don't want to say it excuses your judgment, but mechanically, if you're looking at the right thing, you're more likely to get it right. And then a supervisor, if you miss it, will be understanding. It's not like you were out of position. It's not like you were running. It's not like you were behind a coach. Yep. They will be much more understanding on whatever might happen.
Well, Rod, once again, I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on with us tonight. I think this has been extremely insightful and just the tips and everything. Ladies and gentlemen that are out there, keep your eye out for Rod this coming season. Big Ten conference, so some nice, some pretty good football games going on in the Big Ten conference. I'm a Jersey guy, so RU for me. But as Rod was just saying, he's just a Big Ten sweatshirt kind of guy. But I could have my bias on that one.
Exactly.
But Rod, truly appreciate you coming on here and taking the time. And anything that I can do for you in the future, please feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that I can do. But thank you once again for coming on.
So we got to get you out to a Rutgers game next year.
It's in the works of trying to get up there. I just got to see what the high school schedule is going to show me at.
Exactly.
So, but yeah,
Thanks
I'd love
for
to come up
having me.
and see you. Thank you
No,
once
definitely.
again.
We can get you up there. Come spend the weekend with the crew.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome for me. Yeah, I definitely would love that.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you again, and be safe this season.
Great. Thanks for having me. You have a good one.
You too. Hey, Whistle Talk fans. Are you enjoying what you're listening to? Be sure to hit the like button so that you can join us every week as we break down the nuances of officiating that often go unnoticed. We want to hear from you, the passionate fans who make our game so special. Like what you hear? Hit the like button and let us know. Have a burning question or a hot take? Drop us a comment below to join the conversation.